Everybody ready?
Yeah.
All right. In 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to the Growing Bolder radio show. I'm Bill Schaefer. Mark Middleton's alongside, and we're going from Roger McGuinn on tape to Roger McGuinn live. Yes, the founder of the Byrds is with us in the studio today with his wife, Camilla. How are you guys?
Great.
We were just about, Mark, to talk about probably one of the most interesting stories in music, because it's just cool how it comes together, and that's the formation, or how their most famous hit came to be.
Yeah, the Byrds' first number one hit, released in 1965, something called Mr. Tambourine Man. Roger, how did it come to you guys?
Well, when we left you, I was showing you how it sounded as a demo. It was a demo that Jim Dixon, our manager, had gotten from the East Coast. He'd heard about this demo, and it turns out Bob wasn't going to use it because of the style of recording he used. He just turned on a mic, and whatever happened, and some guy was singing out of tune on it. So it was not usable for about a year, and we got this demo, and I showed you. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man. And David Crosby said, "I don't like it, man." He said that folky 2/4 time, it's not going to play on the radio. And radio was very particular. Well, first of all, they weren't playing folk anymore. They were playing the Beatles and the Stones, and they're very particular about time. And that song was about 5 minutes long, and AM radio wouldn't play anything over 2 minutes and 30 seconds. That was the absolute maximum. So I had an idea of how to fix that song up for radio. We pared it down to one verse, which had boot heels in it, and it sounded really cool. I thought of Jack Kerouac and the Beatle boots, and then we just did a chorus, verse, chorus. And I've been playing around on my guitar with a little... I thought if I put some of that on the front for an intro and then kick the whole thing up with a Beatle beat, it might come out okay for radio. So it came out like... Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. I'm not sleepy and there ain't no place I'm going to. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. In the jingle jangle morning, I'll come following you. Take me for a trip upon your magic swirling ship. All my senses have been stripped, and my hands can't feel the grip, and my toes too numb to step. Wait only for my boot heels to be wandering. I'm ready to go anywhere. I'm ready for to fade onto my own parade, cast a dancing spell my way. I promise to go under it. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. I'm not sleepy and there ain't no place I'm going to. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. In the jingle jangle morning, I'll come following you. And it came out okay for radio. It was 2 minutes and 16 seconds long.
And in January of 1965, the Byrds go into Columbia Studio in L.A. to record that, but yet only one of the Byrds is actually allowed to play in the session, and that's you. How come?
I'd had about 5 years of studio work in New York as a studio musician, and I had a little more experience than the other guys in the studio. So I was privileged to play with the Wrecking Crew. They were like Hal Blaine, Leon Russell, Jerry Cole. Oh man, it was a great band, and it was just a thrill to play with them. Their time was just so right on and tight, and they were really cool. They wore black leather jackets with the collars turned up, and they drove black Cadillacs, like motorcycles, but they were black Cadillacs. And the reason for that is that they could fit all their gear into the trunk of the Cadillac. But they were really cool. And, of course, the other guys in the Byrds were upset, and they lobbied real hard. And they got to play on all the other tracks, except for Mr. Tambourine Man and the flip side of the single, I Knew I'd Want You. But to give you an example of why they used the Wrecking Crew, we knocked out Mr. Tambourine Man and I Knew I'd Want You in one 3-hour session, and it took 77 takes to get Turn, Turn, Turn.
Wow.
Later on.
And it wasn't just the Byrds either, Roger. The Wrecking Crew played on some of the biggest records in history.
They played on all the Crystals and, all the Phil Spector stuff, Bobby Soxon, the Ronettes, the Crystals. They played on everything that the Beach Boys did after a certain period. And the Monkees, of course, everything. They're on all the hits.
So you finished Tambourine Man. Do you sit back and go, wow, boys, we are on our way? Or was it
it wasn't like that. Well, when I listened to it, Terry Melcher was a producer. He rolled out these 6-foot speakers on rollers on the big, huge parquet floor of Studio A in Los Angeles that had been the former Jack Benny radio studio. So it was a big barn of a place. But we're sitting on the floor. Terry Melcher called for a playback of Mr. Tambourine Man, and it blew me away. I went, wow, I can't believe we did that. It was just so creamy, and I couldn't believe it. Of course, it really wasn't us on the band track, and
But it was the guys singing.
It was the guys singing. It was the guys singing.
It was
all the
three
Byrds.
of them
The Byrds were singing. Yeah, Gene Clark and I sang unison, and David Crosby did some wonderful harmony parts on the top, and it blew me away. But then there was a period of about January, February, March, April, about 4 months of not knowing what was going to happen with it, because Columbia Records was a very conservative label. They were middle of the road, sort of like they had Steve Lawrence and Edie Gourmet. That was their big act, and Doris Day, and that was Terry Melcher's mom. He was our producer. So, they weren't sure that they really wanted to get into rock and roll, and they had to wait a while before they released it. And they finally, when they did, it went right up the charts.
And when we come back, two things that I want to hear. I want to hear some Turn, 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 because you mentioned that. But in that interim between cutting the record and it being released, as the story has it, you guys were appearing regularly at a nightclub on Sunset Strip. Peter Fonda, Sonny and Cher, and others were coming every night. And I just have to know what it was like to be a kid from Chicago at that particular time with all of that happening around you. And at that time, Camilla, what were you, 2 years old?
I wish.
Okay, we'll be back in just a second.
I was so